You're listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. This is the podcast where I talk to successful women in entertainment and hear their stories. I am happy to announce our new presenting sponsor, the end-to-end production solution, Green Slate. Producers no longer need to go to the production office to approve time cards, approve POs, review reports, and more, because with Green Slate, you don't have to. Everything is digital, everything is on the app, and you can work from wherever you are. Now, here's where we get meta. I'm also announcing that I have taken a position with Green Slate. I'm the new SVP of West Coast Operations. So if you are tired of the old guard in payroll, you can literally call me 310-789-2001, extension 323. That's 310, get a pen, 789-2001, extension 323. And don't worry, the podcast will continue. Today I talked with Sigrid Gilmer. Sigrid makes black comedies that are historically bent, totally perverse, joyfully irreverent, and concerned with issues of identity, pop culture, and contemporary American society. Sigrid burst onto the National Theater scene with her play Harry and the Thief, an action film, historical, time travel play about a thief who was blackmailed into traveling back in time to deliver a cachet of arms to Harriet Tubman. It has since been produced across the country, including runs of the Pavement Group in Chicago, the No Theater in Cincinnati, and the Skylight Theatre in LA. She also works as a television writer on shows such as A Series of Unfortunate Events on Netflix and Claws on TNT. Now, Sigrid's play Mama Metal is playing right now at Iama Theater Company at the Atwater Village Theater through June 23rd. You can get tickets at iamatheater.com, and I will link to it on my website. I just saw it, and she's right. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. It's the most interesting, innovative, complicated play. It was great. Go see it. You can find us at theother50%.com for added features, photos, show notes, and the merchandise. You can also listen on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places. Also, the full season of Catch a Break, the insider's guide to getting into and navigating Hollywood, is now available on Apple Podcasts and all the podcast places and on the website, catchabreakpodcast.com. Go check that one out too. Okay, here's my conversation with Sigrid Gilmer. Have a listen. What do you do?
I am a writer. I write plays and I write for TV and hopefully, knock wood, write for movies. I have written a movie, so I write,
No knocking wood necessary.
Yeah. I write for performance. So I write for drama, comedy, for actors.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of plays.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk about the play that's opening very soon, although I'm not sure when this is airing, but I'll make sure it airs during the run.
Okay, awesome. The play that's opening in a week, which would be the 23rd, I believe.
Of May.
Of May, thank you. The 23rd of every month. The 23rd of May is called Mama Metal, and it's being produced with Iama Theater Company.
And that's in Atwater Village?
Yes.
Is that theater complex?
Mm-hmm. It's Atwater Village,
is?
yes.
I
Open
love
Fist,
that theater.
and I believe Playwrights Arena is there, and the Echo, I believe.
All right, LA, that is quality theater.
Yeah, that's a lovely, lovely complex with like 4 or 5 theater companies doing stuff. It's a beautiful space.
It's wonderful. Okay, tell me about the play.
So the play is about a woman, Sterling Milburn, whose mother is dying of Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. The play is her way of coping with a really grim and terrible time in her life. And it's very surreal, and it's very funny, and it's very beautiful. It's not a kitchen sink drama or a straight family drama. It's very, very, I don't like the word out there, but it's very surreal and very beautiful.
And is it about mother-daughter relationship while she's going through this?
Yeah, it's about sort of healing, maybe not even healing, just dealing with a big part of your past, knowing that that's about to die off and what that means, and having a mother who, because of her disease, can't communicate, because part of the thing with Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's is it basically starts, what it does in your brain is it shuts down a lot of your functions. And one of your functions is in your throat. Like, I don't know the technical stuff, but you start having trouble swallowing and then eventually speaking.
Terrible.
Yeah. It's a really, really not a cute way to die at all.
And then do they have a complicated relationship?
Yeah. And like, I think
Like all
a mother and daughters.
daughters.
Right. It's such a cliche, but it's so true. All mothers and daughters, no matter what side of the coin you are on, if you're on both, if you're both mom and daughter, or you're just daughter, it's a fraught relationship.
Yeah.
It can be it's intense and very close and fraught for these women.
So is it exploring that end of life?
Mm-hmm, that end of life and not even unpacking, because that seems neat. It's not even an unpacking. I mean, the opening line is the play unfolds like a dream. So it's as if all of the baggage explodes and you're in your face
Oh,
and
no.
you're just getting these different moments and these different sort of emotional touchstones in their relationship. And you're kind of seeing that unravel. Yeah, it's sort of an unraveling and a letting go for somebody who's the main character is very clenched.
So all the emotions.
Yeah, it's all the emotions.
We laugh
it's all,
and cry.
Yeah. There's lots of laughing. There's lots of laughing and lots of hopefully like tears for people. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How long does it run?
It runs until June 23rd.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Everybody go see it. Just weekends?
Yes.
Okay. Go get it. I will put a link
Yeah.
to get tickets on my website.
Thank you.
How did you know you were a writer?
I don't think I did for a long time. I think I've always been involved in the theater since I was a kid. Since I was about 9, I did my first play. It was
You
Wizard of
acting?
Oz. I was acting.
Who were you in Wizard of Oz?
I was Glenda the Good Witch.
Wonderful.
So I like theater. I like just kind of gravitated towards. I had always written sort of like bad poetry and been like a journal writer probably around that same time, but it was never anything I considered. I don't know why. Just like I was going to be
a thing?
Yeah, and not even that it was a thing. It just wasn't my thing. I just had this notion I was going to be an actor, not really sort of knowing what that meant. Mm-hmm. I know I liked doing this thing and I liked being a part of of theater and whatever that community was. I enjoyed that life at 9, right?
It is the gateway to many careers in entertainment.
And so it wasn't actually until I was almost done with my undergrad and I did theater at Cal State LA and I was in acting directing emphasis. So I was going to go and be an actor. That I'd put off taking an English comp class and I'd put off taking playwriting. I just put off all of like the writing classes to literally my last quarter. Cause I don't know, there's something, I just didn't want to do it. And I took the English comp class and I guess this is kind of a humble brag, but it was just easy. Like it was just, and the teacher looked at me, I handed in my first essay and we had to do like this personal essay and she looked at me, she's like, "Oh, you're a writer." And I was like, "What are you talking about, lady?" And then
Isn't it funny, the thing that is so easy you don't value because you think it's nothing?
Yeah. And I just, and a little intimidated, like scared, like not, like I didn't apply to any of the UC schools to go to college. I didn't want to write the essay. Like literally that was the only reason.
Kicking and screaming into this profession.
Yeah. And she was like, "You're a writer." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." And I took, and simultaneously I was taking playwriting. And once I took the playwriting class, our assignment was to write a play. And it clicked. Like I was like, this is what I do in theater. Because I was sort of, and at the same time, I was sort of on the fence about acting, about what that means if you're a woman, what that means if you're a woman of color, and like really thinking about what parts will I be getting, what will I be doing with my life. What does that career look like? Yeah, and it just seemed like a lot of auditioning for like a sassy best friend or like a maid character, even in the 90s, like even when I was, 20 in the 90s and thinking about like heading out into the world. Yeah. So I took playwriting and I was like, oh, this is what I do in theater. And this is how I can act and direct and do all the stuff in theater I like. Like I can make plays in my head and write them down. And it just came naturally to me. Yeah.
Beautiful. And then you can write whatever characters you want to play.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So you started writing for theater. And then what happened when you graduated?
Nothing. I graduated and I kind of was like, oh, I guess I kind of want to be a playwright. I'm not really sure how to do that or what that is.
Yeah. Where do you apply for that job?
Right. Exactly. And I don't have sort of a type A personality in the way that I don't do that and I don't really follow rules well. So I was like, I didn't go take an internship somewhere. And like, that wouldn't, I hung out, smoked a lot of weed, watched movies with my friends, and was a teacher's assistant. I was like, I guess I'll write, and just was writing stuff, and was just like, okay. And then a friend moved to New York and was like, you're not doing anything. Come live in New York. And I was like, oh yeah, New York. That's where all the playwrights live.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to New York. And I went to New York, and I worked at the Here Art Center and worked in their box office and their finance office, and just kind of wrote plays on the side. But again, not terribly ambitious. Creatively, I'm ambitious, but sort of formally.
Like there was no goal?
There's no goal.
Yeah.
Like my goal was sort of like, eventually I'll write plays and make money off of writing. Eventually, I guess. Yeah, I guess. Or have a day job and like make plays and do plays on the side. Like just sort of an informal kind of, I guess I'm headed east, I guess.
Ish.
Yeah.
But then you're an artist living in New York, and that could be the whole goal.
Right. And so, yeah, I was doing like, I live in New York and I have no money and it's hot and I'm on the subway late at night and helping open shows and sort of living that really...
I am living in rent.
Yeah, like living that really, like now I'm like, that's actually not glamorous, but at the time...
At the time it seemed great.
It seems glamorous, the struggle. I'm living the struggle of like the artist sort of, comes from watching too many movies and TV, growing up in front of the TV, these notions of what it would be like. Yeah, and so I lived in New York and sort of wrote and hung out.
Then did you get plays produced in New York?
I did one play in New York at the Here Art Center for their American Living Room project, where it's like they do, God, we did so many plays. It feels like 100. It's probably not. But in the space of like 3 weeks, they bring couches in and they serve beer and they just throw up these really down and dirty plays that people, do on shoestring budgets. And I just had friends who were, who I worked with in the theater, who were actors, but also the tech person, or worked in the box office, but are also a director, and we just threw up this show. And that was the only thing I did, really, yeah.
So then what was your break? Because I know you've worked on television as well.
Mm-hmm. I guess my theatrical break, I ended up going to grad school. I ended up moving back to California after New York, because New York is hard. New York is hard. If you don't have money, if you don't have means and access to stuff, it's hard to get things done. And I lived in New York when it was less expensive than it is now. Yeah. And it's, you could still had a roommate, and you could, when I was working at a box office, I don't even know how much I was, maybe $500 a week. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of money, but I was able to like live and pay rent.
Were you in Manhattan?
Brooklyn. Yeah.
Like you can make it, but it's not luxurious living.
No, not at all. And this was before Brooklyn got super gentrified and you could actually live in Brooklyn cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all changed.
Yeah.
Okay, so where'd you go to grad school?
I went to Cal Arts. Mm-hmm. So I went back here. I came home to...
Is this where you grew up?
I grew up in Northern California, in San Francisco Bay Area, in a town called Pittsburgh, California, the East Bay. Yeah.
I didn't know we had a Pittsburgh, California.
We do. It doesn't have an H. It's just east of Oakland.
Oh, okay.
It's now called, on the BART line, which didn't exist up in Pittsburgh when I grew up. It's called the Bay Point, but that's West Pittsburgh.
That sounds very fancy.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
So you came back here for an MFA program?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I did writing for performance is what it was called at Cal Arts.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And that for me feels like, in terms of theater, like my big sort of like, oh, I'm actually really going to do this. I'm actually going to get ambitious and really just, this will be my life, and I will figure out a way, to just like make a living and live doing this.
Okay. So how did you do that?
I wrote a lot of plays and I got a day job. Mm-hmm. I worked at a law office. A friend of mine a really good friend from college, my friend Shane, was an office manager at a law firm downtown and was like, and I was like working really weird, odd retail jobs. I worked at the Conga room for like half a second in our box office. He was like, you need a job. We need somebody to come in and file and like organize all these files. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. So I did that. I did that up until I got a job in TV. So I did that 7 years.
Wow. Okay. So what was your first TV job?
My first TV job was maybe 4 years ago, maybe 2. Like, oh God, my time. The timing is really crazy. Was Like 3 years ago. So and it was the series of unfortunate events on Netflix.
Yes, what a wonderful first job. Holy cow.
It was an awesome first job, and it was an awesome room of human beings to be, lack of a better word, stuck with for a long time. Yeah.
That's great. Now, how did you get that first job?
Weird happenstance, I think. So let me see if I can do this without being convoluted, which I might not be able to. So,
do you need a whiteboard?
Yeah, I do. It feels like a conspiracy board. So I backtrack. I just had been writing plays at a grad school, applying to everything that you can send your plays to. I worked with I applied to something with Cornerstone Theater Company here in LA and was a member of their ensemble for a while and was writing plays with community with them for a long time and just hustling and having a job and sending stuff out. And I wrote this play called Harry and the Thief, which was about a thief that gets blackmailed into traveling back in time with a cachet of arms to Harriet Tubman to start a revolution. And that got traction and was happening all over the country in different small theaters in Chicago and Cincinnati. So I was just kind of out there living and doing stuff. And I went to a party with a friend of mine and a woman who Allie Liebgott, who I know through her wife, Beth Pickens, through another friend of mine was there. And I just went to her party. It was lovely. We had a great time. And a couple weeks later, I got an email from Daniel Handler, who wrote the Lemony Snicket, who's Lemony Snicket.
Yeah.
And was like, I'm looking for playwrights for my room. And I asked Allie, because she used to live in San Francisco, knew Daniel from that whole writer's scene, and was like, she recommended me you. Can you send me one of your plays? And so I sent him The Harry and the Thief. And it was like a weird...
That's amazing.
Happenstancy.
You just never know what's going to happen and say yes to going to the party.
Yeah, and it's so funny because my friend Bradford Nordine was like, you have to go to this party. And I was like, no.
I never want to go to the party.
Yeah, I never want to go to parties. And I was like, I'll go. Because I adore Beth Pickens, is amazing, and so is Allie. So I was like, I'll go. It was summer. It'll be light. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be easy breezy. And it was a lovely, lovely party. I usually get I tend to just want to sit in a corner and observe and not
find the dog
and not be in sort of social situations. But
that worked out.
Yes, that was. I say yes to going to parties is probably the motto.
Are you acting at all anymore?
No, I stopped acting in undergrad.
And then when a theater company does your play, how involved are you in the process?
It depends. If it's a new play, super involved. Like I'll go and be and sort of be in the room and just be in the room as a resource. Yeah, for the actors, for the director.
Do you ever rewrite as they're working it out?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially new stuff because you never know. You never know until it's in 3D. Mm-hmm. Sometimes on stuff that works on the page, it just doesn't translate for some reason. You can do what you need, maybe that you have a line for that could be a gesture, or maybe you don't need this gesture because a line is doing, but you don't know until it's in people's bodies and in space.
How do ideas come to you? What is your process?
I don't ideas. I tend to be kind of heady about stuff. I like research. I'm a big history buff. So all the time when I'm reading stuff, especially historical stuff, I'm always sort of imagining the story of it. So sometimes it's just that. It's like you read something, like I read how the Harry and the Thief thing happened. I read this little tiny nugget of information about Harriet Tubman that she carried a gun when she would go to free people and take them north. And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. She was ready to blow somebody away if they tried to stop her. And I don't remember where I read it, but the story went on to say was the gun was actually for the people trying to get north, because people understandably would be freaking out, freaking the hell out. What? I want to be free, obviously, but woo, the consequences are so dire. The stakes are real high. And so when people would freak out and want to go back or freak out and freeze, she would take the gun and she was like, you'll be free or you'll be dead. Make a choice. You can't go back. No, you can't go back. You can't go back. And when I read that, I was like, this is the best action movie moment.
Yes. The tension.
I've ever read or seen or imagined. And I was like, where is my big splashy action movie about Harriet Tubman where we get that moment in the trailer where she like points the gun at the camera. It's like, you're going to be free or dead. And the titles smash onto the screen. And there's like a great like heavy metal song in the background. And it's like Harry and the Thief. And so from that, that's sort of how that came about. So they happen sort of happenstance. Again, I don't like to follow rules. And yeah. So my mind just kind of spins and I just kind of try to hang on and follow the whirlwind.
What do you make of what has gone on with women the last few years?
Lordy Jesus. God, it almost feels like, I mean, I love history, so I tend to like, that's sort of my lens of looking at everything is like historically what is happening. So obviously we've been having a giant right-wing pendulum swing since the 80s, right? So as soon as people decide to sort of, people who have been marginalized decide to like stand up for themselves, there's always a swing back, right? Yeah. Because it's like, we're marginalizing you for a reason because we meant it. It wasn't accidental. Right. It wasn't accidental. We want resources that we don't want to give you resources. Yeah. We don't want to share in the sort of the resources of society. So there's a reason. So I never thought it would get this far. Do you know what I mean? And this far right or this far so draconian stuff that you would never think would happen. I'm talking about, like, we were just talking earlier about the bill that just
Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, Alabama and Georgia, all these
5
abortions.
years ago, we could not have imagined this.
No. Like, it just wouldn't be possible. It would seem absurd. Yeah. But that, women can no longer have abortions. Well, it's the law of the land. We have the right to do with our bodies what we feel is necessary and what's important to us. But that has happened. I would never think in a million years that we would have a president that talked about grabbing women by the pussy. Mm-hmm. And that would be okay. And that the majority of white women would vote him in, and that would be okay.
It's unbelievable. That would be okay.
It almost feels like the 70s never happened.
Right.
In a weird way. Yet at the same time, and so it's for me on one side, there's all of that, this crazy, draconian, sort of really misogynistic worldview that is just sweeping over or just getting louder. But then you have stuff like Me Too and Time's Up and stuff like Black Lives Matter movement that's been headed by women.
And all of that has never been bigger.
Yes, and that's the weird thing, right? That's the weird thing where it's like hue and cries from both sides. So it feels on one hand, for me, it feels really dark and dire. And on the other hand, it feels very empowering and very galvanizing that people aren't taking it, that people are calling out bullshit on stuff that is blatantly bullshit. That is,
and it seems like, it very well could possibly be where I'm sitting in the city, who I'm talking to, that it feels like that's a bigger majority is the people you're talking about. And yet, and the optics are always old white guys still have so much power. Even when it feels like the rest of the country is moving away from that, they're still in power. Right. And it's baffling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think the optics are very strange. Because I think if we had the ability to talk to the women who voted for Donald Trump, I'm making an assumption here, a hopeful assumption, that these women would be like, no, I want to be able to work. No, I want affordable childcare. No, I don't want the government in my body. Yes, I want agency and rights. Like, those women would be like, of course, like, because that's what women of a certain generation have grown up with, that this is the expectation.
It's a given.
Yeah. That you will treat me as a full functioning member of society and a human being with my own mind and my own desires and my own needs and agency in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's,
I mean, we're all there and so many people are not there and don't even know that they're not there. Mm-hmm. Did you hear, and I always forget his name, the guy who was the showrunner who just that big apology about sexually harassing his staff member who was a woman?
Which one?
I know. He didn't get convicted of anything, but he did do a giant apology. The showrunner of Community.
Oh, no, I didn't. Yeah.
It was the most specific, detailed I was listening to a podcast and they played This American Life. They played the whole thing and they interviewed her. And it was such a detailed unpacking of what he did in such a, at the end of the day, he justified it for a long time, that at the end of the day, he said, I realized I did it because I had no respect for women as human beings. And it took him so long to get there. But to hear that guy say that, I was like, that's it. And he had no idea until he went through this whole thing that he felt that way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a sense of, and it's not even, it's that idea that, oh, yeah, that's a human person, not somebody in the world just to serve certain needs that I have.
Right.
That they're out.
Who has no relation to me.
Right.
They can just live their life.
Right. That women, I'm having a hard time articulating it because it just feels obvious. It's like if,
How do you state the obvious?
Right. If I was like, the sun sets in the west, the sun's going to come up today. The sun's going to come up today, everybody. Fire is hot. Like, how do you?
Let me put that in context and break it down in a way you can understand.
You put your hand in a fire, it's hot. Like, women are human beings. So we have things we want to do outside of other people and don't exist to serve what somebody thinks is their needs only. So so maybe like you can't touch other people without their permission. Like it's such it baffles my mind because it's like, why would you think you could do that?
Why would you think you could? The unraveling of the onion of people's expectations about other humans, it's amazing how you have to state those things as they come. I remember 2 years ago when that the Stanford rapist guy, and she wrote a letter which essentially said, if I am naked, passed out in the street, you still don't have the right to rape me. And I had never heard that in public. I was like, wow, that is revolutionary. And we're now a couple years beyond that. But that's where we were 2 years ago. Right.
And the gall that I don't understand that thought process. You see a woman passed out naked behind a dumpster and your first inclination isn't to check to make sure she's alive. If she's alive, speak to her. Can I help you? Call 911 if something's wrong. But your first instinct is to assault her sexually?
Right. And I don't think she started at the dumpster. I think he took her
there. Yeah. But you see somebody in distress.
An incapacitated person, and that's your first thought. Let me attack them.
Like that's... I don't understand what that's about.
And then case after case after case, these guys are getting off with no jail. It's baffling.
Yeah.
Anyway. We could go down that rabbit hole forever. Are you feeling a shift since all the talk the last couple of years with representation and underrepresented people? Does it feel like things are shifting in the writers' world? I mean, the data's still horrible.
I mean, I have a hard time sort of answering that question because I grew up in a community. I grew up in the Bay Area, so I grew up in a community that was diverse, that was pretty economically stable, pretty working class, middle class. So there wasn't huge disparities in wealth. But I went to high school with white kids, with Chinese kids, with Filipino kids, with Mexican kids. Like I went to school, that was just normal.
Right.
So I have and the work I do when I write, I just write in a diverse cast. Like I just don't even think about. So in the world I swim in, I'm always like surrounded by people of color and non-people of color.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know if it's
So then you're living in this diverse world and my kids are also, they're like super diverse school and this life. And then I think, when they get out in the world, it's going to be super shocked. Like when you came to LA, which is also a super diverse city, but then into this business that isn't. Was that a big shock?
No, because the work I was doing, like I was working with Cornerstone Theater Company. It was one of the first sort of jobs I had in like professional like theater. They work with a variety of communities to tell their stories. A lot of those communities are communities of color. And the ensemble of actors and directors and performers that Cornerstone has is a diverse community. So
you're in it.
Yeah. So I'm in it. I rarely find myself in rooms where like I'm the only person of color or where I'm the only woman. And that's just happenstance, luck, like just the stuff I'm drawn to. And yeah. So, so it always feels like, Yeah.
So you're like, what's everyone talking about?
I mean, I get it. But I just don't, that's not my lived experience. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do know that's a reality. That's a reality that people do are like, I'm the only person in this room who's a woman. I'm the only person who's a person of color and a woman, or I'm the,
I keep hoping it's getting better, but it sounds like
I think it's getting better. I mean, we need more. I definitely think we need more people of color and more women in everywhere, but definitely in roles, in producerial roles, in like development roles, like in terms of Hollywood, like in those structures, people who are picking the shows, people who are working on development and talking to creators about the shows. I think that would definitely, more diversity is sorely needed in that thing, and definitely more women directors.
For sure.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people coming up behind you?
I guess advice is so weird because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think anybody really knows what we're doing. We're just making this up. We're making up all of it.
What a delicious piece of honesty.
We're all making up life. Nothing is really certain except for everybody's going to die. There's all this other stuff we actually make up, which means we can change it. But, so I love to give advice. I guess my big piece of advice is don't listen to anybody. Don't listen to my advice. Figure out your own path, and be really wary of people who tell you there's one way to do something. Especially if it's, be really, really wary of that would be my big advice. You want to do something, go and do it. Go and do it. Do whatever you have to do to make that happen. Don't ask anybody's permission. Do what you want to do and make it happen and tell your stories. Yeah.
That was hilarious. Don't even listen to my advice.
I don't fucking know. I'm making this shit up. I'm just like, oh.
That's hilarious. I said that, again, not for the podcast. I was in a corporate job, and I said that in a meeting once. I was like, you guys, we're making this all up. It's important because we've all decided it's important. Could we stop freaking out about it?
Thank you.
We're making it up.
Yes.
We're playing work.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah. It's so funny. Sometimes I think that, I'm like, oh, I'm playing office, especially when I worked in my office job. But sometimes in my TV job, I'm like, oh, I'm playing office. When I was 8 in my garage, we decide what's important. We decide what's of value. So that means all that can change. Nothing is intrinsic in sort of social situations. We make up stuff and give value so we could change it. It's whether we want to or not, and what's at stake for changing.
And how willing you are to make the change.
Yeah, and change is hard. And what you're willing to give up. Some people have to share power. Some people have to then learn how to be in power. What's that mean? It's not easy, but since we're making it up, we can actually do it.
I love that. I'm leaving that all in. What have I not asked you about that I should have asked you about?
Well, no.
You know what I used to ask people all the time?
Yeah.
Are you a success?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. And I've been thinking about that a lot, actually.
Glad I asked.
Yeah. Actually, I've been thinking about what, again, back to we make all this shit up. The idea of, I'm using air quotes, but you can't see me, in terms of making it, the big break, getting into, and there are hard jobs to get, and I'm not knocking that, and I'm not knocking the hard work I've done. But so many people you've made it now. You've got, you're in Hollywood, and I'm always I was making plays. I'd already kind of made it.
What does that mean? What does that look like?
Right. You know what? I think for me and my sort of metrics of what I wanted to achieve or want to achieve, I think, I'm a success. I make my bread and butter through my crazy brain.
So no more day job?
No more day job. I had to quit my day job. It's just awesome.
Darn it.
I got to quit my day job. That was pretty, I was like, oh, cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think for me, I feel like I feel successful. This is how I earn my living, is through my crazy thoughts. And that's nice.
Are you a badass?
I think as writing wise, I am. My plays are much more interesting than I am. I think, sort of personally, I'm like a shy geek. I would really just rather be home, like watching a movie or reading a book or hanging out with like one or two friends.
Are you saying you're an introverted writer?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm highly introverted. I don't like social media.
How's this press tour going for you?
I know. I know. So no, I think my plays and my writing is badass, but me, I'm a little mild-mannered and like shy, really.
Do you have a perspective or philosophy on what leadership looks like or what leadership should look like?
Oh, that's, I think when I think of like people that I've worked with, directors and like showrunners and bosses in various things, for me, what the sort of thread, why I liked all of them or all the ones that were successful is that they trust people to be just as smart as they are. Be just as smart. Again, we're all making it up. We're all making it up and we're all trying to figure out whatever this thing is. If it's a law office, if it's a play, if it's a movie, if it's a TV, we're all just we're just making this up. And that I find good leaders or a good leadership style is like trust people to have experiences and knowledge and that they can do their jobs. Yeah. I find the worst, I've had bosses that were super micromanaging and you're just like...
relax. It's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay. It's okay. You hired me. I know what I'm doing.
Do it.
Yeah. But yeah, I think trusting people and trusting, and I know process is icky. I'm not a big fan of process, which is weird being like an artist because it's all process. But that trusting that it's a process and not an outcome, which is hard because we live in a hyper-capitalist world and we want products and outcomes and things things we can replicate and sell and unfortunately life's messier than that, and the more I think we try to like dampen down and control that, the harder it makes makes processes of any kind hard for people. Yeah.
When you're in a writer's room,
mm-hmm.
how much are you thinking of the work versus how much are you thinking of how do I need to present myself as a woman, as a person of color, as the new writer in the room? How much of that noise is going on?
In the beginning, very much. And just for me in general, I'm very self-conscious. So I'm always sort of worried about, am I saying this wrong? Am I coming off weird? And I tend to be weird. So I know that it's like odd being weird and introverted, which gives me sort of perspective of the room. So I'm always can see the room, feel the dynamics, and I'm trying to like fit myself into the dynamic, but not try to stifle myself. So that's going on in my head all the time, no matter what. I'm doing it with you here.
I think you're doing great.
Thank you.
I really relate to that statement you just said.
Yeah, just
same way.
Yeah, I'm always like, okay, don't say that joke. That would be, yes, that would be very good to say something snotty about what that person said and make a joke. It would be, nope.
Install filter.
Yeah, filter. So that's always running through my head in general. And then on top of it, just like Sigrid, human being Sigrid, and then filter on top of that.
Put work on top.
And also filter on top of that. Am I like one of the few people of color in the room? Am I the only woman in the room? How, I'm air quotes, how black do I need, how black am I going to be right now? How, let me do a little code switching. Thank you to boys. You know what I mean? Like, so all of that and then the work. But once I'm comfortable with a group of people, those things start to filter down and ease back and the work can filter through. But there's definitely a huge chunk of like a chunk of time where I'm like having to kind of be guarded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
It's super, yeah.
Your hand gestures were actually perfect as you found the words to say that. Just watching you, I totally got what you were saying.
Yeah. It's exhausting. And I find, I just in general, me as a human being, I find social interactions exhausting, especially if there's more than like 3 people. Mm-hmm. It's exhausting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say now that you're on a roll?
No, good. But I just plug my show. Come see Mama Metal. It's an awesome, beautiful, explosive show. And you've never seen anything like it. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Okay, I'm going to come.
Okay.
All right.
I just wanted to plug the beautiful work of the director, Dina Selenow, who's just been fantastic and doing an amazing job, and all of the amazing actors in the show and the support of Iama Theater Company. It really is. I'm really proud of the work and really excited to share it with people because I think it's unique and phenomenal and really beautiful. And all the fantastic designers too. The designers are just like blowing my brain.
I can't wait. Mama Metal.
Yeah, Mama Metal.
Okay, I'll link to it on my website.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. You've been listening to The Other 50%, a herstory of Hollywood. I'm Julie Harris Walker. I'd like to thank Sigrid Gilmer for sharing her story. Now go get your tickets to Mama Metal. And special thanks to Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on your favorite podcast provider and leave a review. And of course, on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out in letters, for added features, bios of our guests, and the merch. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms. And also go subscribe to catchabreakpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time.